Okay, another Marketing Made Easy. It's August 22nd. It's 7 o'clock. I'm Joey Ragona. You are who you are. Thank you for being on the show here. We have an epic show lined up for tonight. I am super honored as well or I should say, super honored to bring in my friend Scott Vogel and we have a special guest today, Parmees Yaz. Did I pronounce the last name correct?
You did, and actually, it's a shortened version of my last name because I figured if I put the whole thing, it might not fit. So,
What is your full last name? Are you willing to share?
yeah, of course, it's Yes Danyar.
Ah, that's
Yeah,
that's so cool. I love this.
a little bit
So
lengthy, but yeah,
I'll stick with the shorter version of it.
there you
Welcome
go.
to the show.
Thank you.
We are like super honored to have you here, and we were talking just before we got here on the live show about like what you do, who you are, and we kind of held it back from Scott because Scott is not that familiar with what you do, and I want him to realize the brilliance that we have sitting on the Ottawa's Canada, because that's where you are as well, right? I'm not in Ottawa, but I'm in Canada, in Toronto. Share a little bit about who you are and what you do for everyone.
Yeah, of course. So, my name is Parmees, and I am a copywriter turned brand messaging strategist. And what I say right now, I would specialize in is helping personal brands understand how to message themselves, how to position themselves uniquely in the minds of their audience so that they can consistently bring in right fit clients into their programs without feeling like they need to rely on sleazy tactics or marketing strategies that have been completely outdated and overdone in order to get their clients. So that's a little bit of that in a nutshell.
Does that sound like anything we talk about, Scott, for the last 3.5 years?
No, I was really confused because, like, why would you want the right client and consistent? And don't you want to use sleazy, cheap, bro marketing, throttle banging, whack-a-mole tactics to get people to buy? And then you get more people in and you just keep beating them over the head.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We're on Marketing Made Easy. And by the way, if you're watching live, hashtag live on the replay, hashtag replay. Joey, as always, will share the link to the most incredible place to hang out in the Heart Center Marketing Club, where you get support and love, and there's no yucky stuff going on, sleazy as Miss Yaz Danyar had shared. So, Joey,
Like,
what's next here on the show?
uh,
Or is
well, we I wanted to bring Parmees on because she wrote this epic blog post, or not a blog post. I don't even know you did it in a blog post, but it was on Facebook at least. That's where I saw the post, and she writes epic posts pretty much every day. So she's in my regular feed. I love what you write and your whole take on everything. You fit
Thank you.
right into the heart centered world, at least from my perspective. So thank you for being who you are. And so you wrote a post. I have it in front of me here. So if I'm looking down, I'm not ignoring you. It's the 21 reasons why organic content isn't really landing and converting to headline buyers, and 21 mistakes that, even skilled writers and marketers are making. And I went through that and I'm like, a little bit of sight. Oh, a little bit of, So I figured, why don't I just bring you on here and we can go through them. We probably won't go through all of them, but maybe you can just go down them very quickly, give a little bit of an insight on what they are, and then we'll just have a conversation around it. And as well,
Absolutely.
for all of the amazing people that are here, this is by far, as I'm looking right now, Parmees. I told you, it's all you. This is by far the most people we've had live on our show at this moment.
Well,
So it's
let's
all
bring me
you.
on more often.
That's
What are we waiting
I have to do that. So I'm gonna just turn it over to you, okay?
for? Yeah.
And what I was gonna say before I do that is anybody in live watching us live right now, please engage in the conversation, ask, comment, feedback, all that kind of stuff. Take it away, Parmees.
Absolutely. So, one of the things I want to preface this with, because oftentimes when we see these posts or when we see experts or gurus talk about, mistakes people are making, we want to make sure that we have context around, who this person is and how these mistakes are perhaps relevant to us. So, my background for your viewers, if they don't have much background on who I am, I was a copywriter for about 6 years, and I did copywriting, conversion copywriting full time. And so my entire job or my entire career relied on me being able to relay information in a very clear and articulate way. And oftentimes I called myself almost like the liaison or the bridge between the expert in the actual customers or the ideal clients that they wanted to reach. Because oftentimes what we see is that experts kind of fall for the curse of the expert, where they're so close to their work or they're so embedded in the day-to-day of what they do that they start speaking to their audience from their perspective and their lens. And so the common denominator that I saw with every single client that hired me as a copywriter was that they were speaking from a perspective that wasn't necessarily hitting the emotional buy buttons of their audience, and they were speaking in very rational terms, not necessarily in terms that were relevant or even pertinent to the person's day-to-day. And so what I really wanted to do with my copywriting was help people understand the nuances between very clear, precise, articulate communication so that they're actually speaking to the right people. Now, as I'm sure you guys understand, or you guys have been kind of exposed to over the years, there's also a lot of bro marketing tactics when it comes to copywriting, a lot of clickbaity ways of getting people to click onto your, webinar, masterclass, buy your products. And so as I was growing as a copywriter, I started noticing that a lot of my own philosophies around communication are very different than what the majority of people are being taught or what the majority of copywriting really stands around. And so a bit of my background educationally is in consumer psychology and neuromarketing, which is essentially looking at the nexus point of where communication and psychology and how the brain interprets language actually meets consumer psychology and how people make buying decisions. And so as I was kind of immersing myself in the world of consumer psychology and how people make buying decisions, I realized that it's kind of a blessing and a curse to have this information, because you either have the power to, shame someone, guilt someone to trigger their insecurities into buying from you, or you can use language and messaging in a very empowering way. And so this is just to, again, preface the 21 mistakes we're going to go
I love it so far.
Yeah, because oftentimes when I highlight these mistakes without the context given, people can think that the way that I'm portraying or positioning these mistakes is to manipulate or to make people falsely believe things about us that aren't necessarily true. So what all of my brand today stands for is very authentic, aligned messaging that is serving a purpose, that is meant to fulfill a mission, not necessarily just to get your products and services out there, not necessarily just to grow your business as fast as possible, but how do you become a master of your craft, and how do you then relay that information to the right people that you genuinely want to serve? So
brilliant. I'm excited.
Now that everyone has that, and I apologize if I'm looking down as well because I've got the 21 here. I would love to say that I have these memorized, but that would just require brain power that I do not have. So we'll get into the very first one. So my very first mistake is that I see time and time again when people open up their posts, and when I say post, this could be Facebook Lives, this could be YouTube, this could be shorts, like any form of content that you're creating and you're putting out there. It has an opening line that talks about what you as the creator want your audience to know, but not necessarily positions it in a way that evokes curiosity or provides context for what's in it for them. And so I say that you start the post with what you want them to know and not necessarily what is it that they would want to consume the post for. So an example of this that I provided in this post was talking about like healing vulnerability wounds versus leading the title with, here's the real reason why opening up to your wife feels so hard. So if you can see the difference, one is talking about the actual root cause that you as the practitioner, you as the coach know the person needs to learn, versus framing it from the perspective of what the buyer or what the reader or the consumer will actually say, oh, this is relevant to me. Because the purpose behind all effective copy and messaging is to raise awareness and relevance so that people really understand why this post or why this piece of content or why this offer is going to be beneficial to my specific needs and desires. So the key here is meeting the audience member where they're at in their mind, rather than trying to bring them into your world and convince them of why your thing that you need is what they actually need, which we'll get into a little bit deeper in a second too.
Right. I'm going to try to put them up as you go. So keep going.
Oh, look at that. That's going to be...
I'm going to try here. I'm just trying to change the colors here. So keep going.
Go. Awesome. Number 2 is not having any criteria around who this post is for. And so language that can pertain to anyone with no qualifiers that would make someone go, ah, this is me. So I also said in the post that I often joke that you could be a priest, a coach, and a personal trainer, and you can use the same copy, but no one is going to know what's the difference, right? You can be a priest, coach, and trainer and say, I'm going to help you change your life. And that's going to mean different things to different people. So one of the keys to effective copy now becomes providing context and criteria for who is this post for? What are the specific issues they might be facing? What are the specific solutions they might be looking for? So providing context around who you are or who it is that you're trying to reach will help someone go, this is me, rather than just putting vague statements out there that don't necessarily ground them in the context that you want them to be grounded in. All right. You want me to keep going? Any
Keep
comments?
going. I love it.
All right. Number 3. So number 3 is lack of context given around your brand. So number 2 was lack of context around the person that you're speaking to, but this is now about your brand. So content is meant to spark mental associations that over time, your audience has an idea of what you do, who you help, and what they can expect from you. So when you start talking about your solutions, your offers, your client stories, without setting the context properly around your values, your field, your expertise, you're not necessarily strategically positioning yourself to be remembered in the context that you want to be remembered in. And this becomes increasingly important, especially today, where there's a plethora of experts and thought leaders that are all within the same space. So the differentiator here isn't necessarily the solution that you're providing to your audience or, the problem that you're solving, because I'm more than willing to bet there's a million other people out there that solve the very same issue that you resolve. The key to differentiating yourself here is allowing your thoughts, your beliefs, your perspectives to be the thing that leads as the differentiator, not necessarily the solution. And this sometimes is a bit mind-boggling for people because they've been kind of hammered in the marketing world with knowing, problem, solution, and helping people understand why your solution is best. But we're moving out of that era where your solution is the differentiator, and it's becoming even more prominent where your differentiator becomes your own personal brand and your way of solving that problem, not necessarily what the problem is itself. I made a post yesterday that talked about the different strategies that are present within the launching world, where if you've got a product launch or if you've got a program that you've put together, there's a million and one strategies around multi-day live events, around masterclasses, around certain launch email sequences. And oftentimes we find ourselves pigeonholed into thinking that we need to follow something to a T in order it to work. And a lot of these gurus oftentimes talk about proven methods, and me with a science background always has to come in and ask, proven, but for who? Right? In science, it's very rare that we're actually allowed to use the word proven, because just because something has been proven in one context does not mean that it's going to withstand all the other factors that might contribute to the success or the failure. And so we want to make sure that when we're saying these are proven tactics, are we making sure that we're infusing our own personality, and we're making sure that these tactics are aligned with our natural way of showing up? Because you and I can probably help get our clients the same results, but the approach that I take and the approach that you take are two very different things.
100%.
So we want to make sure that our processes and our approaches and our perspectives are being very transparently displayed in our content. Otherwise, people don't necessarily have context in how to categorize you in their mind when it comes to remembering, how does Parmees do marketing or how does Joey do marketing? So this is really important. All right, number 4.
Love it.
So hold on one sec. Parmees, please, one sec. I just would like to repeat what you said, because all of this is amazing and powerful already. But you said infusing our own personality, and these tactics are our natural way of showing up, and as the differentiator. And that, I just wanted to hear it again because it's so important what you just said there, the whole proven thing, and I'm guilty. So thank you, because proven, prove it. And now it's like, when you prove it with infusing your personality and your tactic in your way. And so brilliant. Continue. We're on what, D now, or
we're on 4? Yeah, that would be D. Exactly.
Number D. Yes.
Number D.
Number D. That's exactly. Okay, so this one's a really important one. So if you're tuning in, I would take notes on this one, because this is probably, I would say, the most common that I see to date, which is speaking with the assumption that the reader understands the full scope of their problem or what the solution is. So this is, again, to speak to the issue that you know that they have, rather than speaking to the problem that they have identified. So this is where I oftentimes see people get caught in what I call coach speak, where they'll say, you know that you have limiting beliefs that are stopping you from XYZ. And as a copywriter, I always have to bring it back down to the specificity and the tangibility. And I ask themselves, or I ask the client, what does limiting beliefs actually look like for your client? How do they know that limiting beliefs are actually the problem? So this is, again, Curse of the Expert 2.0, where we assume that just because something is common sense or second nature to us, that the people in our audience also have the knowledge that we have. And this is one that I would even say I'm probably still guilty of at times too. I have to continuously look back at my content and make sure I'm not making any assumptions around what people believe or what I believe that they believe. So getting even more specific and tangible about the actual problem.
Love
All
this.
Right. Well, we got plenty more to go. There's plenty more to go. All right, number 5. So using terms that are open and vague. So open to interpretation and vague, meaning that they can mean different things to different people. So for example, in the post I say, you are giving your power away. You want to ask yourself, what does this look like in your readers day to day? What are the experiences, the thoughts, the pains, the fears, the questions that they experience when they are giving their power away? So you want to speak to the specifics of how that shows up for a client, because once again, it's very open to interpretation. And I actually saw a post today, and I might have gotten into a little bit of a Facebook debate over this, where someone
Say it
said,
isn't so.
yeah, right. That never happens.
Joey, now I know why you and Parmees get along so
Right?
well.
Say it isn't so.
Go figure.
Right.
Say it isn't so. You're going to speak your mind, Parmees. Oh, my.
So
Continue,
the
please,
post,
Parmees.
yeah, seriously. So the post was saying something along the lines of, this is going to change your life. And so I had come in with a perspective of like, well, how do we make change your life tangible? And there was a lot of resistance around making change your life tangible, because the person that wrote this post, in their mind, they knew the context of what change your life looks like for their clients. But if I were to ask you guys, Joey and Scott, if I say that the work I do is going to change your life, that lands very differently for both of you, because each of you have your own definition and interpretation of what your life changing looks like. So you want to make sure that specificity in your copy is something that you prioritize. You want to make sure that you're giving tangible, concrete, vivid examples of what the claims that you're making actually mean and look like for the individual. Otherwise, this is what I call speaking into the void, or you risk having invisible messaging where you just start sounding like everybody else, unlock your potential, overcome limiting beliefs, right? These overused terms that might mean something different to each individual in your audience.
This is one, I want to jump in here 1 second here. This is, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is where, for using overused terms and all that, where the audience insights are so important, because I am very curious all the time. I'm always, my ABC is not always be closing, it's always be curious. And it's like, well, how can I learn exactly what that means to somebody? So I might use, for lack of a better term, you might be overwhelmed, and that might mean XYZ, but I'll be using their terms. Am I going down the right route here?
Yes.
Okay.
And you want to make sure also, I teach this to my clients as well, is that oftentimes it's not necessarily just taking their words and literally inserting that into your content, but being able to look at the context behind their words.
Right.
So if someone is saying that I am struggling with X, oftentimes you don't want to say like, hey, are you struggling with X? Then I have the solution for you. You want to kind of infer a little bit deeper into, okay, if this person is struggling with X, what does that actually mean? What are they really struggling with? What are they really saying? What are the emotional consequences of struggling with X? So that's how you create more potent, emotionally relevant content that doesn't just, talk about the surface level problems that they come to you for.
Yeah, one of the big examples that I use in Atlas is the example of a person who trains dogs or helps people stop their dogs from biting, right? Whatever it is. And so that's the surface level. And I'm like, when you go deeper in that, what does that actually mean? Because anybody could say, well, I'll stop your dog from biting within 2 minutes or 2 hours or whatever it is. But if you understand, well, what does this really mean for that dog person to dog to stop from biting. It could mean, well, A, they can't take your dog out because they're going to be terrified the dog is going to bite somebody, and that person that they bit is going to call the Humane Society, and the dog's going to get put down. But they're not really formulating that in their brain. They might not have contact or their friends over anymore because their dog jumping all over everybody and biting. So their social aspect is gone completely. So is that the level of depth you're talking about?
100%. And one of the exercises I run my clients through to come up with this is looking at the personal, social, and then the functional benefits of acquiring a certain skill or of doing something. So it's not necessarily just taking a siloed or kind of like looking at it from one perspective, but like you said, you want to take multiple angles to look at what are the takeaways of getting your dog to stop biting, what are the benefits, what are the domino effects that will come as a result of this, right? So how will they personally be impacted, socially be impacted, and what is the actual function that they want to resolve, let's say. So yeah, that's the right approach.
So amazing. Joey, I think we're coming to question 6 in a second here, which we're about 26% of the way to the 21. Do we have this post somewhere, Joey? Because we've only had 5 now, and like everyone has to read this and has to follow it, coming from somebody that's written maybe 2 pieces of copy in the last 47 years.
Post is in the comments right now.
Thank you, because read it. Just so far, it's kind of like the 3-minute rule. I could leave now and like tell somebody this is the greatest thing. Go get it, read it. I don't know if I have a book out yet or what or that, but I'll read it. Like just send it. Joey should go read her book. See, I told him to read something. Okay, number 6, Parmees. Go for it.
Awesome. All right. So we are at number 6. So no clear takeaway of what the paradigm shift was, what was the key lesson, or what you want them to do with this information. And this is a problem that is like invisible but rampant, where in the era of content creation, and I'm sure you guys probably, especially over the last week, have talked or seen about the importance of creating constant content and always be pumping out new content, is that we don't necessarily just want to be putting up bundles of information. We want to make sure that we're creating information that is actually relevant to our ideal audience. And so some of the things that I'm seeing, and especially now with the development of AI, is that we've kind of like commoditized content, and we've kind of created this belief that you need to be consistent, you need to always be putting something out there, but this has come at the cost of the decline of quality of content. And so what has happened is that people have equated more content with more success when it comes to their social media presence or their online presence. When what's really important here, what's really the key, is making sure that people actually have a very core message or a key takeaway that they can consistently drive their audience or their readers back to. So this is kind of like for the academics, it's like having the thesis statement, right, of your essay. So you're not just producing content just to become known for something. You want to be able to bring it back to a very particular paradigm shift or a thought or a thesis or a resolution statement that you want to make sure that you're providing evidence for.
Woohoo! Goosebumps. Love it. That's all we talk about here is like, what is the main core statement? What is that core? And you also talked about differentiator, which hopefully we'll get back to in a little bit. But man, I just love it. Keep going. This is amazing.
Absolutely. Amazing. The next one kind of builds on what I just said. So scattered messaging. So there's no core concept or idea or mission that your content ties back to. So what happens often is that I find people get stuck in a little bit of like influencer marketing, where they talk about their really hot takes or their controversial standpoints. And sometimes it's almost done not with ill intention, but done to get a lot of engagement, or done in a way to kind of make themselves be perceived differently, but it doesn't actually resonate with the core message that they stand for. It doesn't actually tie back to the actual mission that they have. So we want to make sure that our message isn't scattered, is that it all ties back and it all falls within kind of the brand identity that we've cultivated, so that we're not just producing random pieces of content.
Very cool.
Number 8. Talking at your audience and telling them what they need to do without taking the time to empathize with their situation, build the case for your solution, or help them gain a deeper understanding of their current experience. So this is kind of what I saw being perpetrated in the traditional copywriting space where it was like, do you have this problem? Let's agitate it further. Let's make you feel worse about it. And by the way, we've got a solution. So I've never really resonated with that method. And it took me a while to recognize that what was missing was the empathy piece, is that it's not enough to just agitate a problem, but you actually want the person to feel heard, seen, understood, held, and to actually develop that empathetic connection so that you're not just pushing a solution, but you're pushing a solution that genuinely resonates with them and will actually bring value depending on where they're at in their current situation.
Amazing.
All right, number 9, lack of specificity around their desired results. So you might be talking about what they will gain by working with you through your lens, but not taking into consideration what would be desirable for them. So for example, a few of the examples I inserted in the post is you'll have positive self-talk, you'll feel a greater sense of freedom and ease, you will achieve wholeness. So I want you to ask yourself, what does this actually do for them? What are the specifics that will improve in their day-to-day? Or what are the current frustrations that will be alleviated? So what you want to do is, again, to make the transformation sound tangible to them, where it's not just this elusive, fluffy woo-woo world that you're promising, but what are the actual tangible day-to-day changes that they will feel, that they will see, and that you can promise and also strongly stand behind, because we want to make sure that your message is in alignment, or your promise that you're making is in alignment with what you can actually stand behind, so that the person can see what's in it for them.
Brilliant.
You want me to keep going? We still got, yeah?
Scott, does anything pop out at you? Any comments there?
I need to stop now because you're introducing concepts that I think are foreign to all of us here. Like you and I, like what is she talking about? Why would you want to do it this way? This is just, I learned the perfect pitch from Perry Belcher and his 12 copy test. And we've talked about the different, but those tests are like, okay, this, and this, structural, the I rule, that stuff. This stuff is just such a level of depth, deeper and more brilliant. So please continue.
Thank you. All right, so we got number 10, and this is one that is a little bit controversial because I have been told time and time again by sales coaches, by marketing people, that if you give away too much in your posts, you're not going to be converting, because then people take away all the things that you do, and it's not going to get them inside your programs. Which, to an extent, I understand the thinking behind it, because if we give away some of the details that the person has never been exposed to, they might walk away from a post feeling complete, or feeling like there's things that they need to do in order to prepare to get into your program. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we need to gatekeep or hide what needs to be done. So number 10 is hiding what people need to do. So talking about the results that your clients have gotten, but not giving any context around what needed to happen to help them get there. So you might think that this creates greater desire for your offers, but in reality, people need to understand the methods and approach used in order to believe that it's right for them. So making sure that we're giving context around our pillars, around our processes, around our methods, because again, not one method is going to resonate with every type of person. You want to make sure that the methods are very transparently being portrayed in your marketing, so people can actually make an ethical decision around whether working with you is the right step. All right, so number 11, this is a super simple one.
But this one is really, I love this one. Can't wait to
this one, and I'm not trying to take a stab at anyone in particular, but I've seen this way too many times. So number 11 is sounding like a copy template. And I said in the post, like, I swear, if I see someone else saying, "I see you, coach," as they're on their sales page one more time, I'm going to lose it, because people have become more happy. And so I can so easily now tell when someone has either used a computer to write their stuff or used a copy template that I've seen being, distributed in these big marketing programs time and time again. And there's nothing wrong with that, because I understand copywriting is a skill. And I often refer to copywriting templates as training wheels. You really want to make sure that you're kind of using it to maybe guide your thoughts. If writing is not your natural forte, you kind of want to use it as a training wheel so that you get some ideas in there, but you want to add some personalization to it. So add a personal story, add your own tone, add some vivid examples, and you just want to infuse it with your voice instead of just allowing the template to do the heavy lifting of the selling for you. So that's another big one.
I'm curious. Go ahead, Scott. Go ahead.
Well, but that takes too long. I can go to ChatGPT and I could have my whole course and 6 years worth of content done in 17 minutes and make all this money. Why would
Right.
I sit like tell a story and write copy? That's absurd.
That's absurd. Especially, yeah, exactly. Especially now that we have ChatGPT and other AI tools that can do the writing for us. But again, I'm a strong, strong believer that it's not the words that get people in, it's also the energy behind the words. And I know that sounds really woo, but as a copywriter, I've tested this. I strongly believe that the energetics behind the words that you're putting out speak far more than the actual words that are being put down on paper. And so this is why you can also follow the launch blueprints or the copy frameworks or the templates, but not necessarily see the results
Yeah,
that
and
you
it
want to.
doesn't work. Exactly right. There's
Yeah.
one thing I want when I read this one here. I was surprised because I don't know about you, Scott, but I've never seen the words "I see you, coach," and
I
I
have
was like, I'm like, what am where am I missing this? So,
dude.
and you're telling me if I see this one more time, I'm like, there's a whole other world that I have not been tapped into here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see it often, and especially I would say it's probably within the like feminine empowerment,
Ah,
kind of like girly coaching. I call it girly coaching, that's bad. But basically like the, the marketing, the really pink fluffy marketing coaches that you'll see where it's like I see you, you've shown up, you've done the things, you follow the
okay, okay,
Okay.
that's the
Got
yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, cool.
And by the way, Parmees, Joey didn't ring the sarcasm bell on my last
Yeah,
comment.
after all this time, we still don't have the sarcasm bell. So, just here's what you do. Here, just take it in context for Parmees is that everything that we say is sarcastic, unless we say it's not. So that's the way it goes. This show.
No, that's why we fit in with one another. I love it.
Exactly.
Okay, where are we at? Number 11 now? We're almost halfway there. 10,
We're
15,
at
what?
12.
We're 12.
Yeah, close
12.
to
Oh my God. I'm asleep
We're
at
getting
the
there.
wheel.
We're
Okay,
getting there.
good.
We're getting plugging through. Okay, so number 12, and this is again another one that people don't really see right off the bat. It doesn't necessarily have to do with copy, but it's again the intention behind the copy. So having a condescending or disempowering tone. So sometimes your fiery perspectives can be unknowingly pushing away the right people. So while you mean well, your directness, your talk down, or assumptive language won't really make your clients feel very safe with you. And I see this being done by people who almost want to be perceived as authoritarian or want to be perceived as the expert or the guru or the go-to in their field. And what they think they're doing is that they're asserting dominance or they're kind of like being viewed as the expert. But what's actually happening is that they're creating unsafety within their tone, or people don't necessarily feel good reading their content. So even if the person has the solution that could be helpful towards their audience, because their tone seems slightly shamey or condescending, it doesn't have or it doesn't evoke the positive emotions of likability that I would want to invest with a person. So again, just a very small nuance when it comes to messaging.
Does that relate to the previous one where you're talking about empathy? That there's not empathy
Mhm.
in that? Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so you want to make sure that you're inserting empathy, but when you're sharing your fiery perspectives, let's say, or your polarizing perspectives, or if you're calling out things in the industry that you see that you don't like, you also want to make sure that you're helping the person who perhaps is making that mistake not feel worse about their situation. Because I
Okay.
always say if people are trying a tactic or strategy, it's probably because they've bought into the idea that this is the thing that works. And so if we're shaming them for doing something that they thought was effective, they don't feel any better about wanting to make that change. What we want to do is to educate them, not shame them into feeling, oh crap, I shouldn't be doing that.
Huge. This is huge. Love it.
Amazing. All right. Number 13. So you're not acknowledging the relevant pain points your ideal client actively is looking to overcome. And I also said in the post here that I know it's become cool to say that pain point marketing is dead. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but especially in the last couple of months, I've seen a slew of posts come out that say pain point marketing is dead. We don't want to talk about pain points. That's not a good marketing practice. And so there's nuance to this because I said data certainly shows that this is not the case. People need to see that you understand their situation thoroughly before they invest with you to solve it. And I think there's this idea that premium clients or high level clients don't relate to pain points. And the way that I approach this is just because someone is a higher level client doesn't mean that their problems just magically disappeared. They still have pain points. They still have things that are frustrations or obstacles or current realities that they feel stuck in. So the key here is to be able to show them that we deeply understand where they're at without poking our fingers into making them feel worse about the situation. But to say pain point marketing is dead is not effective.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And like this one really resonates with me because this is basically everything that I do to bring dream clients in for me and premium dream clients. And when I describe their pain and their situation, which is basically they've gone through the sigmoid curve, they've hit the crash, they've tried everything else, and they're in a hole and they're just not willing to give up because they've got a mission and all this stuff. As soon as I say those words in that situation, even though it's been painful and they've lost money and they don't trust coaches and all these things, they're like, this guy gets me. So, and for me, it's been years. I mean, even looking back 5, 6 years ago, there was people in my world who were telling me, "Yeah, pain marketing, don't do that. Always use positivity." And I don't do any of the pain stuff. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you brought this up.
Totally. And one of the things I even said in the post now is that when you only speak to the desired outcomes or only the positives, what ends up happening is that you risk actually over promising what you can deliver
Yeah,
and over promising the long term benefit rather than demonstrating to the client what's the short term frustrations that will be alleviated if they take action.
yeah,
And going psychology of decision making, we're making our decisions from the reptilian part of the brain that is primed for survival. And so some of the more elusive, future oriented, desires that we talk about, yes, they're desirable and yes, they might sound sexy on paper, but still people are making decisions out of this place to want to protect and want to be safe and want to overcome the pains that they're experiencing. So it is still important to include some pain points in your marketing.
love it.
Okie dokes. Number, where are we at now? Number 14. So
14. Yeah,
14. So giving away the nitty gritty details of what they need to do instead of opening the gap and positioning your solution. So I say this, and sometimes people say, well, yeah, but Parmees, you just said that people need to give details. So is that
right.
contradictory? Right. And the difference here is that you can paint the picture of what needs to happen in order for someone to get a result without feeling the obligation or the urge to have to teach them how to get that result in a singular post. Because I think what ends up happening is that, again, we go into expert mode and then we start teaching them the things that don't necessarily have context within a post, and we end up overwhelming a client rather than showing them, here's what you need to do, here's my approach on doing it, this is what your life could look like afterwards, and I've got a solution that can help you do that. So your content is meant to show them that you understand where they're at right now, you understand where they want to be, and you have a solution, not necessarily to actually help them get the results through the post itself. That's a big kind of difference with the other point I made.
This is like a mini super masterclass for anybody watching this on live in the replay. Thank you so much, Parmees, for this. And I know we're still going here, but let us know in the chat if you're here live, hashtag live or hashtag replay, because we will come back here and answer some of the questions if you do have them, or input some questions to what we're talking about here. But this is a super mini class, and thank you for doing all this. It's amazing. Keep going.
Of course. Of course. All right, so number 15, we got talking about your offer, not your solution. So these two are often used interchangeably. So your offer is the specific program, container, or the thing that you have put together and that are selling. The solution is the concept, the idea, or what I call the prescription that you want them to be sold on so that they understand the value of the offer. So before bringing them into your program, which is, let's say, your 12-week to whatever XYZ results, or your 5 steps to creating whatever results, they need to understand what needs to happen in order for them to get their result or get out of their current situation, in order for them to see value in your offer. So a very, very easy way for me to explain this is that if I use myself as an example, if someone's posts are not converting and they feel like they want to hire an expert to help them write better posts, it's my job and my content to show them that messaging is the missing piece. And I can't sell them a messaging program if they don't understand that messaging is the problem that they have in their content. They might think that it's a visibility issue. They might think that they have the wrong audience. They'll come up with all these other reasons. But if their messaging is not dialed in, it doesn't matter what strategy they use, they're not going to be successful. So if I came and I said, if your posts are not converting, join my messaging program, I'm skipping a critical step, which is helping them understand why messaging is the thing that they need and how is that relevant to their desired result that they're trying to get.
Beautiful.
All right.
Love it.
Joey, you got 21 shows here on this. Like,
I know.
This stuff is so intensely powerful, important. Anybody writing copy. And by writing copy, I don't care. You're not a copywriter. You write a blog post, go do this. You write a sales page, go look at this. You do anything that you're sharing with a human, go read these 23. I'm printing it out right now when it's.
Oh yeah, it's part of my checklist already. Like now it's like it's a staple in anything I do.
Yeah, and I even said in the post, I said, this is one you want to save and come back to. It's not one of those things that you read once and then you say, okay, great, I got it. Like, this is a continuous thing that you want to refer back to as like a sales guide almost. Before you put any piece of content out there, run it through these 21 and make sure you're not doing it.
Amazing.
Awesome.
It's going to sit next to this one, just so you know.
Oh my gosh. Thanks, Scott.
What are we're at number 16 now?
16, we're getting there.
16. All right. So not spending enough time educating your audience around why they're at where they're at and what common beliefs and behaviors keep them there. So what are the common symptoms and culprits, or AKA you're not raising enough awareness around the source of their problem, not just their pains, and jumping straight into what they need to do or change. So you might be making asks almost too soon. What I see oftentimes happening here is that, again, it kind of goes hand in hand with selling people on your solution without actually telling them, or selling people on your offer without telling them what your solution is. What I see happen time and time again is that people will be very quick to ask for a sale when they haven't actually taken the time to help the client understand why they're at where they're at. And research even shows this, neuromarketing research or behavior decision-making research shows that people need to have a full scope, context, or idea of why they haven't been able to do something on their own, or why their problem is very prominent currently in their life before they actually pay to solve that problem. So I know, again, it's another cool thing to say that educational content doesn't convert. Educational content absolutely does convert, but it needs to be done in the right way. Educational content is not meant to help people get results from your posts or help them walk them through the entire journey with a single post. But what it is meant to do is to help people understand why they're stuck where they're at. What are the culprits? What are the common symptoms? And the deeper you can help someone get kind of grounded into what their problem is, the more likely they're actually able to see you as an authority or your solution as a viable product or an option.
Nice.
Hey,
thank you, Coley, for the comments, Coley.
Joey, where'd you find her?
I'm not revealing my sources.
I'm not revealing. Go on, Parmees. Thank you. This is great.
Brilliant, right? I told you, Scott. I said, wait till you meet tonight's guest.
We're almost there, guys. I'm surprised that everyone's been patient so far. But we're almost
all
there.
good. We got time. It's all good. We're
awesome.
here as long as you can stay.
Oh, I'm good.
Okay.
All right. So number 17 is, this one's a more tactical one when it comes to copywriting. So what I've noticed is that there's clunky transitions between ideas in your writing. So you jump from one topic to the next without any transitional sentences or mini cliffhangers to keep people reading. So this makes the consumption of your content reader, and it increases the likelihood that someone will stop reading. Now, Joey's had me on Facebook forever now. And Joey, you know that I post like essay length content. Like there's some, got to keep hitting the read more button. So it's just, they're just long. They're mini novels basically. And what I find intriguing is the amount of people who say, I don't usually read really long posts, and for some reason I get sucked into yours and I read it all the way to the end. How do you do that? And the reason why I do that is, or a reason why I can kind of assume, is because it's not that my writing is just so magnetic, is that I'm very good at transitioning from idea to idea in a way that keeps the person hooked into reading. So one of the issues in your content is that even if you do all the things that I've talked about up until this point, if your copy is clunky, meaning that you're just jumping from idea to idea without actually seamlessly kind of, going through it and adding those curiosity hangers or those cliffhangers throughout the post, people will probably drop off and not read the whole thing, or
Mm-hmm.
read through it and not really get what the gist of the post was. So we want to avoid doing that.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you a question. So
Yeah.
because I call
No,
this
no, you said let me. Don't let him, Parmees. Do not
so
let him answer. Not allowed.
uh, so I often refer to these as connectors, like copy
Yeah.
connectors, and then so do you? I guess yeah. What I'm asking is, do you use a lot of open loops or cliffhangers? Like, let's say paragraph one has a cliffhanger, and then you continue it 3 or 4 down, but you still have your copy connectors that bring the reader down, like the Joe Sugarman slippery slope and all these things. So
Mm-hmm.
is that what your norm? Would you norm? Are you more on that? Is that the way you write? Is with open loops and then connect them later on? Would you say you do that more in your copy, or is it just a natural flow between one idea to the next?
I almost want to say that it doesn't even consciously happen
Yeah,
anymore. I mean, I don't
yeah,
consciously open loops and then consciously go back to close that loop. I think it
yeah.
just has naturally become a way that I write. And I think what I do, and what most people, when I ask them, what got you to actually read the post, most people will say, I almost feel like you were answering my questions in my head as I was reading through.
Got it.
So it's almost like following a very logical way of writing, so that if I talk about one concept, I can almost already preconceive what their question or what
What
their
they're gonna
objective.
ask? Yeah.
Yeah, and then the next idea will address that. So it just naturally follows a flow of what a person would want to consume, or what the order of information is of someone would want to consume.
I'm
So
glad you said
Joey,
that. I hope everybody hears that. Yes, sir.
Parmees, what you just said was brilliant. And because I was going to ask you, you said, the transition mistake. And then you said, okay. And I learned this from listening to David Deutsch, and he's a genius. And it was, okay, after each paragraph, each thought, what question are they asking in their mind that you then say, okay, you
Yeah.
just said this proof or whatever. And it's like, okay, did they really prove it? And do I believe it? Okay, good. I'm ready to go to the next. And earlier you talked about awareness, and it's like level of awareness. So where are we at? Number like
We're at
something
number
team.
18. 18.
Wow.
We're so close. We're so close.
80
All right, so
We're
so
almost
you're
there.
we're almost there. Okay, so 18 is your content ecosystem is centered around your offers, your wins, your process, your results, and aka what you do, rather than sprinkling in your perspectives, your insights, your story, your personality, and your values. And this goes back to, I almost feel like point number one, where I said that your posts almost become, how would I say this? Your posts almost become more transactional, or more about the result that you provide, rather than allowing your unique differences and your ideologies and your perspectives be the thing that differentiates you in your industry. So if you can lead with that, I feel that that is going to be the biggest difference in your personal brand going forward. Making sure that we're humanizing the methods, that we're adding
Yes.
it, not intellect, but adding emotional resonance, adding the values piece, allowing our mission to be the thing that leads people's decisions, rather than the end outcome or the result that we're promising them.
Scott, what comes to mind when she said all that? What framework comes to mind?
I was writing something else she was saying. So tell I know the answer, but I wrote down she blows away the goober gurus with this stuff. And
Parmees, what?
I'm talking, the gurus, the
Yeah.
bros at the top of this
The
thing. It's
bros,
like,
yeah.
yeah, she blows them away with this stuff. Like, where did Parmees? Where did you like learn this stuff? Who was your like most influential copy mentor, book teacher, coach? Like, where was it
What?
that was like, aha?
So this is going to be an unconventional answer. I don't think any of the typical marketing, copywriting people are anyone that I looked up to. I think in the beginning days of my copywriting business, I did look up to some of the bigger figures. Uh, Honestly, I feel like I've learned more about copywriting and human behavior and these things from philosophy books and from philosophy texts than I have from any modern day copy guru. And if
Well,
you
you
look
talked about that in the beginning, where that's where I was bringing it back to
yeah,
was your thing is look. I understand the psychology and I understand what's going on in the neurons and that and the emotions, and that to me is what your genius is that I'm loving, is from that viewpoint. It's not, oh yeah, I read this dude's book on copywriting. Everybody go read this dude's book, and everyone does the same thing. Go on,
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's
and one
interesting. Yeah, go for it, Joey.
no, go ahead, finish your thought.
No, I was just gonna say what's interesting is oftentimes people will bring up really successful copywriters and they'll be like, "Oh, you've probably heard of this person," and I almost get a little bit of like imposter syndrome, being like, "Well, crap, I haven't. Like, maybe I should. Like, maybe I should know of this person because if I'm so,
No,
vastly knowledgeable in my field, I should probably know who this person is." And then they talk about their principles, and I'm like, "Oh, I already do that. Like, I don't like, I don't necessarily need to follow this person to learn what they do. I've learned it from experience rather than like following their trainings."
Yeah, and one of the things, there's two thoughts I have here. One of them, Scott, I was referring to in what she just said was the superpower matrix, like show up
okay,
as you are. Because I have
right.
this framework, the Parmees, that is where I'm teaching clients when you're going out into the world, it's easy to attract clients just by being who you are. And part of that matrix is your personality, your passions, things that you love, all those things, like taking off the mask, and that's really it. And sharing
Exactly.
your frameworks, that's another part of it. Sharing the things that are valuable to you, which is part of what you just said here. Like show them some of the good stuff, don't hold it back, and then your
100%.
experiences and just who you are, right? So that's the one
100%.
thing. So I love
Yeah.
I love what you said there. And then the other thing that just really just hit me now with what you were just saying about not knowing, I guess, all the copywriters, is one of the most, in my experience, one of the most brilliant ways to excel in an industry that has everybody doing the same thing is to take
Mhm.
something from outside of the industry, right, and
Yeah.
then apply it to the industry. So you're looking at psychology or sociology books or whatever it is, and you're saying, wait a minute, and then you're bringing it into the copywriting world where nobody else is really doing that. So I honor you for that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And I think also what ends up happening is that you start noticing the parallels and the patterns in just again when it comes to human behavior, when it comes to marketing, we oftentimes just overthink it as to
Yeah.
like what is this, what's the tactic, and it's like at the end of the day, it just comes down to being human, right?
Hmm.
What strategy or tactic did you have to use to attract your spouse? Probably none. You were just yourself. You were being yourself. You led with your values. You found common goals, common ground, and you were able to communicate in a very loving way, and that's what brought them in. That's kind of what your marketing strategy revolves around as well.
That for me is right there. That's the clip right there. What you just said, brilliant.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, number 19, guys, we got three more to go. Look at this. So, number 19, another controversial one. So, adding calls to action to everything or sporadically without having a clear strategy on what types of posts they perform best on or on how to entice your readers to take the action. So, I've been kind of called out for, and again, Joey, you've seen my stuff. I rarely use calls to action, which
Same
pisses a
here.
lot copywriters off, and
Yep.
like how do you expect people to know what the next decision is? And I'm like, well, I expect the people reading my content to have two brain cells and be able to put two and two together and know that if what I talk about is relevant to them, they can go click my link in bio and figure out what it is that I do. So I don't have anything against calls to action. However,
Right.
slapping them on it into everything kind of creates this transactional nature where it's like I'm going to give you value, I'm going to give you content only if you promise to go buy something from me, or I'm going to create a post that is very deeply relevant or emotional, and then I'm going to ruin it by adding a offer at the end of it. So you want to make sure that the calls to action that you're using are coming off an authority post, are coming on problem solution posts or problem awareness posts where people are actually looking for, okay, this has been great, what's the next step? But
Hmm.
just putting them on everything, I would say, is not an effective strategy. If anything, it's doing more damage to your conversions than good.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I don't know if you're familiar with my three main pillars that we
Number
talk about.
three, pillar number three, pillar number three.
It's
Yeah.
I was thinking of pillar number two, which she's talking
I was
about here.
thinking of three. And
Oh,
so
It
enlighten
it
me.
is three. It is three as well, but I think it number two. So I'll let Scott share them with you.
So
Sure.
pillar number one is to curate the tribe. Parmees Joey's developed that in you curate the people that have at least two brain cells, okay?
The right
And
people, yeah.
make the right people. And then it's serve, don't sell, which is Joey's second. And the
That's
third
number
is
two.
respect time and when they're ready, not, so Yeah,
Oh, we're so in
fabulous.
alignment with that. We're so in
Right?
alignment. There's someone
Right?
that I actually just right before getting on this was going back and forth through voice message and basically talked about how I don't believe in objections. And again, this is another thing I say that marketers get pissed off at is that I don't believe in overcoming objections. I never have, and I think that that has been one of the reasons why I've attracted the people that I have is because even when I get on calls with them, which I don't do anymore, but when I would get on sales calls per se, they had full control of making that decision. It didn't necessarily have to happen on the call. I adopted this kind of like never be closing type of method, I
Yeah.
guess I would say
Yeah.
in 2018, where it was like, I believe the person has full sovereignty to make that decision on their own. And whether it's a money objection or I need to talk to my spouse or right now is not the right time. All right, I fully believe that you, when the right time is there, you'll make that decision. I'm not going to be forcing you into something. And it's worked
Yeah, you
marvelously.
know, it's true that we are so aligned, and I'm glad we had this conversation because, for years before I created or at least realized what those three pillars were, I tried everything and anything to convert people on clarity calls and everything else, even though, because I wasn't doing so well before that,
Yep.
for 7 years before. And I'm like, okay, well, everybody else is doing this. Maybe I'm missing something. So I'm a guy who just jumps in and is going to give everything
Yeah.
100% of the effort. And I felt so icky on those calls because it was like, no, they have to make a decision. And I literally had, two documents of objection handling things that I
Yep.
would be, first of all, I'm not even listening now to the person because I'm
Right.
distracted trying to look for what are they actually saying so I can get the call back to come to their objection. That didn't work. And I literally have a banker's box I'm looking at right down there of all these call prep forms that went absolutely nowhere. And then I
Mm-hmm.
turned it to what you just said is like, I really don't care. This is not a sales call. This is a service call. Whatever
Right.
happens, happens, right? And lo and behold, my business just exploded. So thank you for
Exactly.
saying that.
Of course. And I hope more people actually really listen to that and not just listen, but internalize it because I personally believe that is the secret to endless sales. And it's like the paradox of selling is like when you're not trying to sell, that's when you get the sale.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
honestly feel that's the key to all of this.
And it's
And
not
and
it's not always that takeaway sale either, right? It's not we're not trying to manipulate either by not selling. It's truly that they
exactly
can because I believe even through this medium here that we could still feel someone's energy. They can still feel when we're going after that sale, even if it's over a Zoom call or a clarity thingy.
100%. And I think also that speaks to some of the energetic components of what I talk about, which again weren't addressed in this. I could probably come up with a whole other 11 reasons why you're energetic not sailing or selling. But one of the reasons why I see a lot of posts not converting is that transactional mindset that I always talk about, where you're creating content with the expectation to get an immediate ROI,
Right.
or you're doing something with the expectation of getting something in return. So it's like I give only to take, or I give only if I have a guarantee of receiving something back in return, which I don't
Oh,
agree with.
brilliant. We did when was that, Scott? We did a whole show on the
Oh yeah.
expectations. Remember we had that long
Oh
show
yeah.
about yeah, you know, just
That-
giving without expectation, but like it's the fact of it's not that I was in that expectation too, Parmees. Like I was like
Yep.
in that zone, but it
Yep.
was like it's not that I don't want to make a sale or don't want to make money, but I don't expect someone even when they opt in. I don't expect them. I don't bring them through this funnel and this 5-day thing and it's a deadline and all these other things. It was like I'm going to give you more value. What thing I just
Yeah.
gave you, let me add to this. I call
Yep.
it the gift extender, and then it's like, okay, let me again go with number 3, respect their timeline whenever they're ready. But it's not that I expect them to buy. I want them and hope that they do buy because I do know that I've got an amazing solution. That's it.
That's the
But
difference.
right? Yeah. Cool.
And Joey, I think with here is the law of reciprocity. A lot of people somewhere get like, okay, I gave you something, Parmees, and now I expect something back.
Right.
Instead
Yep.
of, I gave you something, I put some energy out into the universe and some good stuff. And if it serves you well, awesome. And if that gives you a boost and your life gets better, great. And then if you're like later on, like maybe there's more to this cool thing, Okay, Parmees, what are we at? Number 19,
Yeah.
20? We're almost there. Yay.
I'll just say something real quick. It's so crazy you said that, Scott, because over the weekend I wrote something where I literally just wrote it down in my idea bank, and it said the law of reciprocity is such BS. And the
Yeah.
reason why I got prompted with that is because I saw a reel pop up of another copywriter talking about how to use the law of reciprocity to get people, like, the foot in the door technique. You get them to commit to something small, they'll commit to something bigger later. And I was like, oh my goodness, this goes against so many of the principles I teach. I need to write about it. So thank you for mentioning that. So that's going to be a post too.
There you
Awesome.
go.
Okay. So I'm going to
Wait,
bunch.
for those that don't know where to find your posts, where do they find your post? Where do they find your, what's this 8 principles that fuel personal and professional success all about?
Oh, you're doing your research. You're doing your research. So I wrote a book when I was very young.
Joey gives me advance notice for the show, so I do a lot of research.
I just put the post we're talking about now again into the comments.
Okay,
Awesome.
thank you, Joey. So, pardon me, just real quick, because I obviously jumped on Amazon looking for you to see where you're at all over the multiverse. Go.
Right. So that book has nothing to do with marketing, funny enough. I have a huge passion, obviously, for human behavior, for high performance, for all the things about, how to become a better human. And I think I wrote a post, I wrote the book about 5 or 6 years ago. And it was all about the 8 principles that I have inferred from business that fuel to a more fulfilling, to a more whole way of living. And they come from the background of positive psychology, of consumer psychology, and also certain principles of functional medicine, and how we can look at principles of functional medicine and well-being into playing into our greater role in fulfillment and yada yada. So that book is probably for a volume 2.
Yeah, you're writing copy to the fascia even. You're really deep to the body. Okay.
Exactly. All right, so the last 2 I'm going to kind of bundle up together, simply because they are 2 different points, but they kind of speak to the same thing. So number 20 was that your content isn't creating any real deep connection with your ideal reader. So you're either keeping your content very surface level or obvious, or you're keeping things very inspirational, regurgitating ideas that you've seen from people. We're speaking about ideas that are safe and comfortable for you. So one of the things I consistently talk about with my clients is getting outside their comfort zone and actually talking about the things that they want to talk about, rather than talking about the things that are industry standard or like appropriate. Because by keeping themselves vanilla and appropriate and digestible by everyone, they're actually shooting themselves in the foot, because what's happening is that they're just blending into all the different people who are essentially saying the same things. So really, again, going back to leaning into your unique edge, leaning into your realness, and not being afraid of portraying your viewpoints or putting yourself out there in a way that actually attracts the right people. And lo and behold, you will probably repel some people too, but that is the point of marketing. You're not just supposed to attract them, it's supposed to repel the people who aren't right for you either.
There's 8 billion people on the planet. You have to repel most of them.
100%. Exactly. That's it. And then number 21, which is the voice behind your content isn't grounded or aligned in your personality and doesn't evoke the emotions that you want your readers to feel when they consume your work. So again, maybe you're mimicking somebody else's voice, or maybe you read a post and you say, oh, I want to be like this guy. And then you kind of start copying the way that they show up online, maybe the way they do their post or the topics they talk about. And so what ends up happening is that the voice or the person behind the brand doesn't necessarily align with the mission. And once again, you kind of blend into everybody else instead of actually honing in on your uniqueness and understanding what is it that your people need to hear in order to build that like, trust, and know factor with you. So making sure that you're actually speaking from an authentic place and not mimicking what you think is going to be accepted by others.
Yeah, this was a big one for me because I was like that. And it's like, I remember even the first time I spoke on stage, the person said like, so what's your style like and everything? And I said, you know that guy? You know that guy? Yeah. Well, I'm kind of like both of them. And I'll never forget, he said, you know what I'd really like to see? What? I'd like to see Joey Ragona up there. And I'll never forget that. And I'm like, okay, but I didn't listen. Obviously I didn't listen because I still tried to mimic some other people during the journey. But then, a couple of years back, this was the epiphany for me, is like, you know what? I'm just going to show up as me. And that's, like you said, that was the difference. And I love what you were just saying in the last little, everything that you said today. I just love it, because there's so much that I align with, and there's many things that I've made mistakes at and still make mistakes that I'm going to clean up. But it's more, I really want everyone to listen to what you're saying here about being yourself, because I think that's the underlying thing,
Yeah.
unless I'm missing the whole point here. But for me, what it was from all this is that just be yourself
Yeah.
out there, and everything will change for you. Do you agree with that?
Exactly. Yes, 100%. And I also think that being yourself is oftentimes a very deep question, and sometimes even provokes some feelings of discomfort in many people,
Yeah.
because being themselves is something that they haven't even fully
Mm-hmm.
conceptualized. Or perhaps it's very uncomfortable for them to be themselves because it forces them to face parts of themselves that they perhaps have been masking with other people's personas or identities. And so the idea of being yourself, or even reaching the point where your marketing is truly an authentic depiction of who you are, becomes more of an internal journey than it has anything to do with the external words and strategies and tactics that you
Yeah,
use.
that's
And
that's
yeah,
exactly right. Like, I don't know about you, but for me, I've had no problem being who I am since a teenager. There was only
yeah,
one part of my life where I was like, okay, I'll try to do that and try to
yeah,
fit in over here, and that was the most uncomfortable time. It was only like maybe for a year or whatever, but
yeah,
then I've never had that. So I conceptually understand when clients will come to me and they'll say, this is really difficult for me because of what you're just saying, because they have
yeah,
not been able to do that. Now, how about you? Like, have you been okay with being yourself since day
yeah.
one of birth? Like,
No, no, definitely
no.
not.
Okay.
And I wouldn't say that I've ever mimicked somebody else, but I think that being, and especially, we're getting vulnerable, especially being a young woman in a scientific field, I almost felt like I never fit into any of the categories. And
Mm,
I've written some funny posts about like how I was brought up looking like a Kardashian, but then I spoke like a Greek Stoic philosopher. And that kind of created a little bit of like dissonance for people because they couldn't categorize me in some sort of category. Like she speaks like she's really nerdy, but she looks a certain way. And sometimes it attracted the wrong types of attention. And so I almost felt like I needed to like morph myself into this more appropriate version of myself, or this more professional version of myself, or the fact that I did so many things at such a young age and nobody's going to take me seriously because I'm
mm,
a 25-year-old running a six-figure business. No one's going to take me seriously at 25. I need to make myself seem more important, or I need to make myself seem more intellectual, or I need to make myself seem more whatever was going through my head. So even though I wasn't mimicking another individual in particular, I feel like I had to kind of make myself more vanilla in order for people to be able to accept me. And what
okay.
I've now noticed with my marketing is that the less I try to fit myself into a box and the more I'm okay with being like a walking paradox, the
Yeah.
more people are actually attracted to that. So it is an internal process because it requires you facing yourself. It requires you healing certain wounds you have, healing certain beliefs perhaps that you have about what is, who actually are you at your core. What do you believe? What do you want to become known for? And that's a painful process that some people perhaps don't have the emotional readiness or the capacity to do yet.
And if you don't have the capacity, go out and hire a coach like Joey Ragona or Parmees
Yeah.
Yaz. And you too, you can post the link with the affiliate to the Tripwire thing, the course, and
Where's
the
the bell?
Yeah,
Where's the
presentation.
where's the
sarcasm bell?
invoice we get then? Yeah.
So, Parmees, you, Joey, dream clients, you right fit clients. So, who is your right fit client? What have you come to know as you talk about clients you went and visited, you have met? So, like again, I'm not saying, hey, go, but you don't want some you want the people that should go stand in the other line, according to Seth Godin. Well,
Right.
you want with the two brain cells. So, who
Right.
qualifies for that for you? Just curious about your right fit client, dream client.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I've even perhaps evolved the way that I look at ideal clients. And I mean, this could probably be a whole separate episode thing on its own where
I'm
I've
writing it
evolved.
down right now, so get
Yeah,
ready for another
we'll be
invite.
back. We'll be back. Yeah. I've moved away from like the ideal client avatar type in terms of like looking at the demographics and looking at how much they earn and coming up with the criteria of what actually gets them into my programs. And instead, I've narrowed it down to, what does this person have to believe? what actions are they willing to take, and what do they need to have in terms of like assets, in terms of where they're at in their business right now to be qualified. So my people, and I've said this in many posts, my people are not the ones that want to scale to the multi six figure months in as little time as possible. They're not necessarily the people who are for the masses. They don't necessarily care about becoming the next guru in their field. They don't necessarily think that business is something that is quick, instant gratification. I oftentimes refer to my clients as creatives and artists, people that are dedicated to the process of mastering their craft and getting better at it. They want to play the long game when it comes to their branding and their positioning. And they really do have a mission that they almost feel like it's a disservice to not get into the hands of more people. So even if they come to me for methods and strategies and more effective marketing and messaging to get their stuff out there, it's not because I want to line my pockets as fast as possible. It's because they have genuinely thought of these amazing solutions that they know would really fulfill a gap in their industry. And they feel that by not getting it out there and by not putting it out in front of as many people as they can, that they're doing a disservice or they're not fulfilling their own personal mission. So that's kind of the gist of the ideal client, I would say.
Joey, if you took AI, took just exactly what she said, changed the voice to yours with your image, you wouldn't have to ever do anything ever again.
I know it. I'm listening to her, and it's like it's a mirror image almost. It's like, but wow, it's so great to hear.
To you, but
the same person.
A little better.
Yeah,
that's all.
Yeah, it's kind of like Michael and Janet, right? It's like
there you go. It's the same person.
Same
whatever. The lights, she's dim the lights, so we really can't tell as we get deeper. This really is. Okay,
I know,
let's come.
Getting horrible in here.
That's really Joey. We're using AI tonight. We're using a whole new journey and combined, and just seeing if it works and all the things. And Joey, you've been doing a brilliant job with the numbers up there.
I'm trying as fast as possible here.
So, Ms. Yaz Danyar, what do you actually sell? Like, what do people give you money for at the end of the day to transform?
Yeah. So currently right now there's I would say two ways that people work with me. One is that just this year I launched a program called Neuro Message, which is a bit of a hybrid program. It's not necessarily group coaching, it's not self-paced, but you come in and I'm essentially giving you access to all the trainings that I've amalgamated over the years and all the new kind of lessons about all the things that we just talked about on today's call and more. And I've distilled them down into three categories. So people who come into my world need to establish their brand identity and get clear on their mission. They need to then understand how to communicate their mission and communicate their value in a way that is tangible, specific, in a way that lands with the right people. And they need to know how to cultivate that tribe or build that brand presence that actually allows the right people to consistently find them and come into their world without them having to do the tripwires and the upsells and the downsells and all of that. So those are the three umbrella categories that I help people in Neuro Message. And obviously it says it kind of in the name itself. With Neuro, it's all based on the research I've done, and it's also based on a lot of the personal branding principles that are kind of avant-garde or go against the grain of what is being taught in the marketing space. So again, with all the criteria I mentioned for all the types of people who come in, these are really thought leaders. These are people who want to lead a movement. These are people who have genuine solutions to gaps they've observed in the marketplace, and they just want to learn how to better articulate it or how to attract ready buyers into their world. So that's the name of the program. It's 6 months, and there's plenty of high touch support with me. I'm one of the people who always believes in being, connected to the heart and soul of the business. So you don't get support coaches. You don't work with a million other people when you come into the program. You work directly with me. It's not necessarily like I'm the face of the brand, then you come in and there's a million other people that take care of you. So there's that. And then I obviously take on one-on-one clients who want to strategize one specific avenue of their business. So perhaps they're releasing a webinar, perhaps they're revamping their entire brand image, and they want kind of a very strategic partner that can come in and kind of give them the different angles of how they can take their message to the next level, how they can make it more potent. So those are currently the two ways that I work with people.
And what's the best way for, let's say somebody saw the show on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, Boozgla, wherever. How would they best reach out to you if they wanted to find you?
Yeah. So, probably honestly the best way is probably through my Facebook. I mean, my Facebook and Instagram is where I'm most active. So just like typing in my name as it's showing on this show here, into Facebook and either follow or add me as a friend. I have my link directly to the program and with all the details and what it encompasses right there. So if someone was curious and wanting to learn more, yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna actually. I just found
Joey,
it here. Yeah, so I'll put the link inside here for make it easy for
awesome.
everyone. There you go.
There
That's
we
your Facebook.comer. Amazing. This is. I wish we could just go on forever here.
No,
I just want. I don't want to keep you here forever here
no, it's all
because I
good.
could talk about this stuff forever. Thank you for sharing this knowledge and insight. I learned so much. This post, like I said, when I saw it, it was like like everything you do stands out. But this one, just maybe it was just this week or last week, it was like, wow, this I really have to get this in front of more people
Of
because it
course.
truly is a checklist that is its own course right then and there. Like this is a lead magnet. It's a gift. It's all there right on and you're just sharing it. And I love the fact that you are involved with every piece of everything that you do. That's a
Mm,
big important thing for me as well. All my clients are the same way. Is there's no other person.
hmm.
I've set the business up that I am showing up. That's what the curating of the tribe and the dream clients. And these are best friends. These are people that I want to show up that charge my
Yeah.
batteries. All the stuff
Yeah.
we've talked about for the last 3.5 years on this show. And it sounds to me like you're aligned with that same thing. And
Absolutely.
so, thank you for all of this insight. It's been
Of course.
brilliant.
Yes, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome, Scott. Any
Oh yeah. I've been playing this game for quite some time, 47 years, and I've studied, read, been hired everybody. You're good, I'm hiring you. Professional speak, blah 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 blah.
Hmm.
And between Joey and I, what we talked about for 188 weeks straight, whatever, we've uncovered everything. And this is some of the most powerful content that anybody that's wanting to help serve humans and make this world a better place, this is what you need. If you want to go do the cheesy, sleazy, hypey, whack-a-mole throttle, go follow the templates and the crap out there. If you want to do it the right way, seek out Joey and seek out Parmees and really understand that you get this stuff down, then life becomes really
100%.
easy. Thank you, Parmees, for being with us. It was just what an honor to.
I
I'm
appreciate.
humbled in your genius. It's truly
Yeah.
magnificent. Make sure the world gets this stuff because it's important.
I appreciate that. And as I was writing that post, I was wondering to myself, is this too much for one post? Should I break it down into 21 individual posts? And then I said, nah, I'm going to give it all in one. And if anything, I could probably repurpose it into multiple different content pieces, and allow it to be a thing. But yeah, I really appreciate that. And I'm glad that, content like that is received because as someone who's a creator like me, again, there's no expectation for conversions or ROI on pieces like this that we do. This is really what I see developing my body of work or developing my life's work, and putting things like this out there is not for the manipulative ways of making people see me as a certain figure or whatnot. It's really just because I really do notice these problems being very prominent and very real for many people, and I think the more I can educate people on this, the easier the world of marketing kind of becomes, which again full circle comes back to the whole topic of this show too.
Yeah. I was just going to
That's
ask you if you had what final words, but is there
That
more final words or well,
Oh,
you
I
just
think
summed
that's
it up
it.
there?
I think there was many words, but
Yeah, it's so amazing. Thank you so much.
getting a little
Stay.
emotional there, Parmees, are you, huh?
no, no, I'm good. I'm good. Stoic.
I thought you were like a little revealing that vulnerability, transparent kind of emotional thing. I
That's
like
the
it.
energy. That's the energy. That's
That's
it's
just
like
always.
passion and
Hey,
energy behind the
fabulous.
movement.
Yeah.
I love it.
Fabulous.
Well, this has been another amazing show. Thank you both for being here. We will see everyone next week, Tuesday at 7:00, and maybe we'll see Parmees again. Hint, hint. We never know if that'll happen again.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
have
She needs to be on a lot more.
definitely. Thank you so much again, Parmees. We'll see you
Of
soon,
course.
Scott. We'll
Thank
see
you.
you soon, buddy, and see everyone else next Tuesday night.